So what does it mean for a whole country to have its own philosophy? I mean, is it something that's just buried in the past, waiting for someone to dig it up? Or is it something that has to be built from the ground up? Today, we're going to dig into that very question, all through the eyes of one of the Philippines' most important thinkers, Dr. Alfredo P. and his really powerful way of looking at the search for a Filipino consciousness.
For more than 50 years, especially after coming out of centuries of colonial rule, Filipino intellectuals have been wrestling with this one massive question. Is there such a thing as a uniquely Filipino philosophy? And look, this wasn't just some dusty academic debate. Nope. This was a deep, profound search for a national identity.
And you can totally see where this quest came from, right? I mean, after all that time under foreign powers, there was this urgent, deeply felt need to find and reclaim something uniquely Filipino, to uncover those philosophical roots that had been kind of buried under all these layers of outside influence.
And you have to remember, this search wasn't happening in a vacuum. It was actually part of this huge global movement. Back in 1955, the Bandung Conference lit a fire, sparking this wave of post-colonial awakening all over the world. A little later, UNESCO even started an initiative encouraging former colonies, telling them, hey, go rediscover your indigenous roots. The thinking was that it could be a real path to global peace.
So how did they actually go about this search? Well, scholars pretty much tried everything they could think of. Some of them started teaching philosophy in the national language, Filipino. Others took a deep dive into cultural values, analyzing concepts like utang na loob, that deep sense of gratitude, or Bayanihan, which is that incredible spirit of communal unity. They were even collecting old folk sayings, hoping to find some kind of ancient wisdom hidden inside.
But this is where Dr. Ko steps in and raises a really critical point. He basically argues that in all their patriotic passion, these early pioneers, they made a fundamental mistake. They started confusing their love of country for the actual practice of philosophy.
A perfect example of this comes from the work of Dr. Emerita Quito. She wanted to prove that you could discuss really complex philosophy in Filipino, so she taught her courses in the language and even invented brand new terms. For that foundational Western concept of being, she came up with the word pagahandian. It was a really bold, fascinating linguistic project.
And for Dr. Ko, this is the heart of the matter. He argued that, look, while teaching in Filipino is a powerful, wonderful expression of national pride, it doesn't on its own create a new philosophy. Translating a concept isn't the same thing as building a new one. It's basically confusing the vehicle, the language, with the destination, which is philosophy.
And they ran into the same problem with cultural values. Scholars identified these really core concepts like Bayanihan and utang na loob. And while these are absolutely vital for understanding Filipino culture, the analysis just stopped there. They were treated like conclusions, not what they should have been, starting points for a much bigger philosophical system.
Okay, so this brings us to the absolute core of Dr. Ko's argument, a single distinction that completely reframes this entire debate. He suggests that what these scholars were finding wasn't really philosophy at all. It was something else, something he calls pre-philosophy.
So what in the world is pre-philosophy? Well, think of it like raw material. It's the collection of a culture's seminal ideas, all its folk wisdom, its core values, all those concepts that make it unique. It's like having all the flour, sugar, and eggs, but you haven't actually baked the cake yet. These are the seeds of thought, but they haven't yet grown into the forest of a philosophical tradition.
See, for Ko, an authentic philosophy needs something more. It needs to be a body of written literature. An idea gets proposed, then it gets challenged by an opponent, and then it's debated by others, over and over, across generations. It's this dynamic, documented conversation through time that actually builds a philosophical tradition. And that, he argued, was the missing piece.
This quote just nails it, doesn't it? It perfectly captures what happened with that initial search. The journey was so valuable, it uncovered this incredibly rich soil of Filipino pre-philosophy. But the treasure they actually found wasn't the one they were looking for.
Okay, so if that first path, the search for a buried philosophy, was basically a dead end, then what's the alternative? This is where Dr. Ko proposes his new model, two totally distinct paths, or as he calls them, the two streams that Filipino thinkers can follow. So let's lay these two streams out side by side, because it makes it super clear. On one side, you've got stream one, the indigenous search. Its motivation? Nationalism, looking backward. The method? Excavation, digging up cultural values. And the outcome? Pre-philosophy. Now, stream two is the alternative. Its motivation is all about rigorous engagement with the global conversation of ideas.
The method is creation, writing, debating, publishing. And the outcome is the slow, steady creation of a truly authentic body of Filipino philosophy.
To put it really simply, Stream 1 was all about looking backward. It was a search for something that they presumed was lost. And that's a noble goal, for sure, but it's one that just didn't result in a living, breathing philosophy. Stream 2, on the other hand, is all about looking forward. It's not about finding, it's about doing. It's about Filipino thinkers stepping onto the global stage, engaging with Plato, with Confucius, with modern thinkers, and adding their own unique voices to that worldwide conversation.
And this brings us right to the future and the incredible promise of this second stream. It just completely changes the game for what it means to be a Filipino philosopher.
And this, right here, might be the most powerful takeaway of all. Philosophy isn't a thing, it's an activity. It's a verb, not a noun. It's not some artifact you dig up from the past. It's a structure you have to actively build, piece by piece, through really hard thought and debate.
So how do you build this structure? Well, the blueprint is pretty clear. Filipino thinkers engage with global ideas. They write, they publish, they create a body of work. And crucially, they have to debate each other in print, forging their ideas in the fire of that discourse. And over time, this growing body of work, a body of work created by Filipinos, simply becomes Filipino philosophy.
This is the final and maybe most liberating insight. The goal isn't to find a Filipino philosophy. The goal is just to do philosophy. Like Ko says, your identity will take care of itself. Because the thinkers are Filipino, the work they create, in conversation with the entire world, will, by its very definition, become Filipino philosophy.
So Dr. Ko's argument really leaves us with a question that goes way beyond philosophy and touches all of our lives. Is identity, whether it's our own personal identity or a national one, is it something we just find, fully formed somewhere in our past, or is it something we have to actively create, day by day, through the work we do and the choices we make? Now that is a thought worth exploring. Thanks for joining us.